Welcome to Lair, the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, another in my series of what I call In Defense Of. This is where I take an album or albums that are maybe not that popular with the fan base, and I come to their defense. So the albums that I am coming to the defense of today are the two Tracy G era albums of the Dio band. We have Strange Highways, which came out in '93, and Angry Machines, which came out in '96. If you saw my video, and if you haven't already, you can check this out, my years away from heavy metal. I mentioned that from like 89 or so to like 93, I drifted away from metal. I was listening to grunge like 92, 93, 94, but I started getting back into metal like around 94, 95. And one of the things that got me back into it was Bruce Dickinson's Balls to Picasso and these two Dio albums. And a lot of times when people are ranking the Dio catalog, usually Angry Machines comes in last. Usually people think pretty highly of Strange Highways, but the Tracy G era of the band is usually considered a bit of a failure, and I think that that's a shame because I really like Tracy G's guitar playing. And I remember at the time, again, going back to I had been away from metal, this caught my eye, Strange Highways, so I got it. And I remember Tracy G's guitar playing felt like the right guitar player for that point in time with metal. You have to remember that Dio had just done the Dehumanizer album with Black Sabbath. He did that album, that tour, and then the band broke up, on bad terms. Black Sabbath wanting to do some shows on Ozzy's, at that time, farewell tour. Ronnie didn't want to do that. So Ronnie leaves, rather abruptly. And when he comes back to his band, it feels like, to me, like Strange Highways and Dehumanizer are a bit of a continuation of where he was going with Dehumanizer. Dehumanizer, he was getting away from the rainbows and dragons fantasy type lyrics and was dealing more with more earthy, contemporary, modern type things, the evil of man, society, computers, the future. And it felt like he continued that with these two albums. And for me, having been away from metal for a little bit and just starting to get back into it, I really did not want to hear a guitar player who was going to sound like Vivian Campbell or some 80s guitar shredder. And in some ways, that's what a lot of people were turned off, I think, by Tracy G. He had such a different style for a Dio guitar player. In my opinion, he's probably the most different of all the Dio guitar players. Vivian Campbell is my favorite Dio guitar player, but Tracy G had the most different type of sound. He had more of a, I don't want to say industrial, because it makes you think of like industrial metal or industrial music, but his sound was very, his riffs were very chunky and down-tuned. He did a lot of like bends with his whammy bar and like harmonics and kind of noise type things. Think Rage Against the Machine, but not like that sort of rap rock type scratching and those types of noises, but those kind of like more mechanical noises coming out of his guitar. And his riffs were very, I say this in a good way, very blocky, like cement blocks. They were real heavy and kind of sludgy. And this sort of felt like it followed what Ronnie was doing in Dehumanizer. That album had a little bit of that feel, and this seems to be a continuation of that. And I remember when I heard it, I was really taken aback by Tracy's playing. It felt really fresh to me. It was like kind of like, a lot of guitar players at that time, you got to remember in like 93, 94, the whole like 80s shred guitar type thing was was done. Nobody was really doing that anymore. You know, maybe sans like Pantera or Ozzy with Zach. A lot of people had gotten away from that. So people were exploring different ways to express themselves, to get heavy on the guitar. People were down tuning the grunge stuff, you know, was more kind of thick and sludgy. And this sort of fit in with that. And I think for some people, that really turned them off because it was so different from the traditional Dio type guitar player, Vivian Campbell, Rowan Robertson, or Craig Goldie. But I really liked it, and to me, that's what makes these albums really special. And you know, I think that the songwriting, especially on Strange Highways, I think is really, really strong. I mean, Ronnie just comes at these songs with real, just like venom. You know, his delivery is just so intense. Jesus, Mary, and the Holy Ghost, Firehead, the title track, Strange Highways, Hollywood Black, Evolution, Pain, One Foot in the Grave. They're all really catchy. Give Her the Gun. It's a slow, real dark, moody one. You know, they're all really catchy, but they're super heavy riffs. And again, Tracy's riffing it's kind of quirky. It's not your traditional 80s type metal riffing, you know. It's like he's constructing things in slightly different ways, and his riffs move sort of atypical than you would expect. And I thought that that was really, really cool, and I dug it. I thought he had a great sound. You got Vinny Appice on drums, of course, and Vinny fits right in with Tracy G's style of playing that really heavy, concrete blocks. You know, Vinny Appice has a huge drum sound, and he's the king of like what I call the slow drum fill, do 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 do, you know, those kind of things. And that fit right in with what they were going for here. Jeff Pilson on bass sounds great on it. So for me, this is just a fantastic album. Now I know for a lot of people, Angry Machines is not their favorite Dio album, and in some ways I can sort of understand it to a certain extent. This one, the songs aren't quite as catchy as they were on Strange Highways, but I remember when I got this, I was really excited because I was just getting back into metal like big time. And it felt really exciting to me. I really don't care for Lock Up the Wolves. That album doesn't do a lot for me. I find it a little bit, I hate to say it, but boring. Too many like slow to mid-pace songs, which would sort of plague Dio's catalog from that point forward. And although there's a lot of slow stuff on Strange Highways and Angry Machines, to me it works here because it's a real mechanical, you know, this cover sort of describes to me like the sound of the band at this era, like crazy robots taking over the earth. It has a futuristic, robotic, cyborg, alien-like sound. Tracy's playing these weird sort of noises in these thick, you know, choppy, heavy riffs. So I just loved it, and I was really invested in it. There was a live album that came out around this time too. I got that. I was really into that. Now that was another complaint that people had with Tracy G is that they didn't like the way he handled the older material. And I sort of get it because he wasn't that type of guitar player, although he still had a lot of chops and stuff like that. But he put his own interpretation on those older songs, and I think for some people, they just couldn't get past that. You know, it was just, again, it was just too different. But on this one, there's still some great, great stuff on this. Institutional Man, it's like so slow and heavy. That riff is just like, it's moving backwards, you know, it's just awesome. And the drums just sound great. It's the same lineup here on this album. Don't Tell the Kids, Black, Hunter of the Heart, Stay Out of My Head, another slow, like, you know, doomy sounding thing. In my opinion, Strange Highways and Angry Machines are like Dio's two doomiest sounding records. Big Sister, Double Monday, Golden Rule, Dying in America, and probably my favorite Dio ballad ends this record, This Is Your Life. It's just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful ballad with like strings and stuff in it, sort of like a slightly orchestrated type thing. It's just a beautiful ballad, and I just think that this album is just so full of deep cuts and so much cool stuff on this record. So, all right, there you go. There's my in defense of the Tracy G era. He was radically different than anybody else, but it worked for me, and it worked for the time that it came out. Again, you got to sort of put yourself in the time frame here to sort of the early mid 90s when that whole type of 80s guitar shred thing was just, you know, nobody was into that anymore. People were searching for different things, and Tracy G, to me, he still sounded like a metal guitar player, but he had a different approach to it, and I really appreciate that. That's why I dug these albums so much, and just kind of where Dio was going with this. And I wish he could have continued with this band, but these albums were sort of flops for him, especially Angry Machines, and it sort of forced his hand then to, you know, kind of go back to his more traditional sound. And I do like Killing the Dragon and Magica and stuff like that, but these albums, I just really dig these albums. So, all right, let me know what you guys think of the Tracy G era, the band of Strange Highways and of Angry Machines. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys feel the same, what you like or don't like about these albums in this era of the band. Okay, let me know in the comments, and until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.